Back off. Jesus Christ! What the f***? Good dog. What the f***?
His name's Pac-Man. We've been porting the vampire gene into other species. Experimenting.
You made a goddamn vampire Pomeranian?
Welcome to Franchise Killer, a podcast where we pick movie franchises or wannabe franchises, review them film by film, and see where things went wrong. Or right.
Right.
I'm Reese. To my left is
David.
Further to my left,
Irina.
Across from me,
New Jersey Dracula.
Okay.
also known as
Noah.
Was that your costume this year? New Jersey Dracula?
Could have been.
And off in a distant land, maybe Syria, we have
AJ.
What are you doing in Syria, AJ?
He's Drake, the Dracula god.
Oh, yeah. That's what it is.
Today we're talking about Blade Trinity, movie that came out in 2004, directed by David S. Goyer. You recognize that name?
Oh, yeah.
He wrote the first two films along with this one. He's primarily known as a writer, but he's directed a couple things. He directed this and a horror movie called The Invisible and another crappy horror movie called The Unborn. He's also written the Dark Knight trilogy, Man of Steel, Batman Begins, The Crow, Dark City.
Love The Crow.
Yeah, and some others. Honestly, he's got some good credits in the writing department, I'll say. Mm-hmm. Although, over time, people have kind of soured on him, especially with Batman v Superman. They think a lot of that movie's flaws were due to the script he wrote. But
Yeah.
It said he directed Batman versus... Oh, wait, never mind. I lied.
that would be Zack Snyder.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say... Well, the thing is, on his IMDb, it has these 5 movies, and then it goes to his writing.
All right, go back to your corner, David.
I'm not
This
the
is
host
not
of
your
this
role.
podcast.
David trying to fact check the fact checker.
Excuse me? If you look at IMDb, that he's the writer of all of the ones you said, I am incorrect.
The movie stars Wesley Snipes, Jessica Biel, Ryan Reynolds, Chris Christopherson, Dominic Purcell, Parker Posey, and what's his
Ring
name?
Around the Rosie?
Patton Oswalt, that guy.
Yeah.
No jokes here.
And I already said it, but it's written by David S. Goyer, but I'm just kind of going down the list here. And it's based on, yet again, Blade by Marv Wolfman, the Marvel comic series. Anyway, on this podcast, we first go over our thoughts on the film before revisiting it for the episode. Then we dive into the story, break it down bit by bit, and talk about the more significant moments. Then towards the end of the show, we give our brief reviews and numbered scores, along with an analysis on the health of the franchise and whether or not this film hurt it. So guys, had y'all seen this movie before this episode? I'm going to throw it over to you first, Noah.
No.
Just no.
No.
You have no other further input.
Not really.
Has he seen it? No, he has not.
I've been listening back to some of our episodes, and that's your input on a lot of them. It's just like,
No.
no.
Just need a
Well, there's not
compilation.
more to say. I mean,
You need
Yeah.
a soundboard of Noah with
No.
his nose
Here.
and Chad's.
I'll change it up a little bit. I'll change my voice each time.
Sounds good.
No.
Or say different variations of negative, you know?
Negatory.
Yep. How about you, AJ?
Yeah, I think I saw it roughly after it came out. I don't remember a whole lot about the plot. I definitely remember the part where Sandra Bullock's character throws the tiara and it explodes, but that's about it.
I don't
goodness.
remember that part. I do not recall
Sandra
Sandra Bullock being
Bullock.
in this movie.
We're not talking
Wait.
about miscongeniality?
Definitely not.
So I want to
Definitely
know
not.
that connection.
Yeah.
How did you get to miscongeniality?
Honestly, it is the only rough rhyme that I could find.
Blade.
Trinity congeniality. You're gonna catch some flack for that one. How about you, David?
Nope. I don't think I've ever seen this before. I feel like this is the one I always saw commercials of. I feel like this is about the time where I started noticing more.
Jessica Biel.
Biel.
Oh, we made the same joke.
I think the first movie I saw with her was I Now Pronounce You Chuck and Larry. Great movie.
I don't
Those
think
is-
I ever
I think
saw
those were
that
close
one.
to the same year.
It was pretty close. It was probably like 2005 or 6.
Yeah.
But I had optimistic hopes with this.
Optimistic hopes.
What are
Hope in
negative
itself
hopes?
is optimistic.
You were, I could tell you were trying to dodge around saying like positive reactions.
I do say that quite often, don't I?
I have optimistic hopes. I think hopes already implies optimism.
It does.
It does.
So it's a little
redundancy, yes.
How about you, Arena?
Yeah, I saw this before, and I think the strongest memory is basically the crossbow wielding Jessica Biel.
Oh yeah.
I have to say, I was very envious of her guns at the time, but
Her arms. She means her arms.
everyone knows what that means.
I don't know.
Anyway.
She could have guns in this.
No,
She has a bow.
anyway, it was a long time ago that I saw this, so I was actually enjoying it because I had forgotten a lot of the details. So yeah.
And I'm in the same boat as Noah and David. I had not seen this movie and had not seen any parts of it either, which was different from the first two, which I had seen portions of before we covered them. But yeah, this one I was completely flying blind on. Totally fresh impression here. So before we get into that story, David, do you want to do our call to action?
Yeah. So right now we are doing this whole podcast free of charge for all you amazing listeners. We need as much support as we can get from you guys. So if you guys feel like helping us out, go on to Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review, hit that subscribe button in any way. I'm dying of water here.
Hit the button in any way.
Anyway.
With your nose, with your toe.
With other things.
Nope, not with that.
Wait, no. If it gets the 5 stars.
They really liked it.
Yeah.
Is this really what we're going with?
Yeah, we're going with it.
I hate myself.
All right, let's get into that story.
I have to ask you a couple of questions. What can you tell me about vampires?
They exist.
Blade.
First, he faced their gods. Then he battled their demons. But all that was only the beginning.
He's come back.
Vampire final solution.
You can't win this war alone.
Who the hell are you people?
My father meant for us to help you.
Whistler's daughter. What the hell makes you think you know about hunting vampires?
Just for starters, I used to be one.
Blade Trinity.
There's nothing stopping them now.
It's me.
A small group of vampires investigate an ancient tomb in the Syrian desert, which they believe belongs to Dracula, the first vampire. To keep Blade from interfering, they frame him for the murder of a human familiar. FBI agents subsequently locate Blade's hideout and kill his mentor and friend, Abraham Whistler. Demoralized, Blade surrenders and is arrested. The vampire's familiars have arranged for the authorities to turn Blade over to them. He is rescued by Hannibal King and Abigail Whistler, Abraham's daughter, who invite Blade to join their band of vampire hunters, the Night Stalkers. From them, Blade learns that Danica Talos, an old enemy of King's, has revived Dracula, or Drake, with the goal of using his powers to cure vampires of their weaknesses. As the first of the vampires, Drake's DNA is untainted and he is able to survive in sunlight. Along with newly innovative ultraviolet sundog ammunition, the Night Stalkers have created an experimental bioweapon known as Daystar, capable of killing vampires at the genetic level. However, they need a purer blood source to make it effective. As Drake is too powerful to kill via normal means, they hope that the virus will kill him and, with his blood in the mix, ensure the rest of the species is wiped out, but also fear that this will include Blade.
Boom.
Let's go back to the beginning, man. F you, son.
Yeah,
I hate you.
Okay, I actually kind of like that. I think that I don't know.
I thought it was
enjoy
hilarious. The first thing we see in this movie is just some guy in a suit, like with a mask on. I don't even know who they are in the moment.
Well,
and this
when
guy
they-
just giving the middle finger
When
to
they
the
flip
sun.
off the sun, can you guess who they might be.
I thought maybe there was something in there and we were just blinded by like I don't know. It was just
I didn't
very on the
get that
nose.
they were flipping off the sun until then.
It's
I
not-
thought they were, because they were dropped off by a helicopter, I thought they were
Oh, I
flicking
thought that
off the
was
people leaving for some
See?
reason. I was like, why are they doing that?
But no, anyway.
See, this is that conversation Irina and I had when we watched it because I wasn't certain, but no, I 100% believe they were flipping off the sun. I mean, they're vampires and they hate that sun.
They hate
That's something
the
they
sun.
just did for the audience. That's like, how many times have they probably already talked about how much they hate the sun?
They really dwelled on it too.
Yeah. So how do we feel about this little origin story of Dracula or Drake? We don't have to get into like the performance yet,
Yeah.
but the setup of this movie.
I think this intro almost felt like they were trying to go for a horror element, whereas the other two films didn't. You could kind of classify them as horror, but they didn't have the tropes necessarily. This kind of reminded me a little of what is it? Almost kind of Prometheus, you know, sort of like
yeah.
investigating an old area and discovering something ancient.
Yeah, we got to this archaeological dig and we
I
found
totally
a
thought
vampire.
they were murdered though, and then find out later, oh, they're not. He went with them willingly.
Yeah, he just decided to kill one of them because.
Well, he didn't know yet.
I guess.
He was just like, there's people above me, and he killed one, and then he came out, and they're like, wait, we're vampires too. And he's like, all right.
Yeah, so,
cool.
so to reframe it for anyone who's not seen the movie, these three vampires who we don't know who they are dig up this ancient vampire for who knows why, and he immediately just kills one of them.
Because plot.
And then cut to Blade.
And I don't mind it. It hooks me, but they don't really go anywhere with that.
Yeah, and I also think it's a problem that this guy isn't referenced at all in the previous two movies. Like, there's no like, oh, you know, this guy's bad, but the big bad is still slumbering.
Yeah, he's out there.
He's just kind of instantly inserted into this movie, and it's like, oh no, this is the one you really need to worry about. Just like a new issue of a comic which I guess makes sense because it's based off a comic. But so this guy is Dracula?
Yes,
Yes.
they even bring out the comic and show you. They
Yeah.
show you, look at this Marvel comic. This is Dracula.
Dude, I hate this.
That was the longest pause. That pause was so
couldn't
long
find
that
the words.
that's one of those
Do
things
I-
when I look down at my phone and I'm like, I accidentally pause the podcast?
Am I sensing another Chadpire?
Yes! I was going to
Nailed
say,
it.
you know what this is? A frickin' Chadpire. And they took inspiration from Jersey Shore. Like,
It does feel like it a little bit.
he
The open-chested
he comes
shirt.
in later with like all the bling and like he's
bit
got
of a
like a
Creed music
crucifix
video.
on the
Yeah.
I know, that's exactly what I was thinking.
With arms wide open.
Yeah. And by the way, Dracula wearing a crucifix? No.
He's showing off at that point.
Yeah, he's just like,
But it's not even like a obvious crucifix. It's just like a thing that they're like, well, let's throw that on there. That's bling.
they're trying to make it really obvious that he doesn't succumb to the same weaknesses that normal vampires do, because
He's
that's what this
walking
whole
in
movie
daylight
is. Yeah,
and
it
all
hinges
that,
on.
yeah.
And
It's
he's got
just
goat
dumb.
eyes for some reason.
Also,
Hey, I'm okay. I think the eyes are all right. Like when they do, like conceptually the eyes are okay. It's more whenever he's just in normal form.
when he's in vampire form, though, he's like straight up demon level.
Yeah,
which
it
is
looks more like a
I'm
demon
actually
status.
I'm actually okay with that. It's just more whenever he turns like human mode that he's just
Yeah.
and you.
It's actually kind of
Just
underwhelming when you see this demonic looking thing with horns and like the bifurcated jaw and like it's all over the
Yeah.
place. It's very
Yeah.
scary, very horrific. And then he comes down to this Chadpire.
Exactly.
Hey, what's up? My name's Drake.
My name's my name's Drake.
So cut to Blade. We're reintroduced to Wesley Snipes here. What do we think about this opening salvo from Blade? And is it as effective as his intros in the first two films?
I liked it. I just think it's more Blade just kicking butt, you know, and I kind of enjoy seeing those special effects, you know, all these
Yeah.
disintegrating vampires.
They
but-
change from movie to movie, the
They
way
do.
that they fall apart.
Yeah.
I actually, think it might have looked better in the second one, at least the way they disintegrated.
I don't think it was too much different because it has that similar like fire burning you from the insides until you turn into ash.
No, I know,
like
but
a second.
But in the second one, it just seemed more artistically done, almost. Whereas this new one felt like they just put the same like after effect on every person who was killed.
So my eyes were less on the CG, more on the choreography, and I think the choreography is less good.
It is the worst of the three.
Yeah.
Well, it's weird that you say that because I watched it again, and I know how we had our argument in the first and second where you were describing the first one as more of a slow lumbering, like his punch packs way more. In
Not
that one.
slow, but more impactful.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the second one is more martial arts based. This one I thought was going back to original form. It felt more like the first movie to me than the second
Yeah,
one.
but it's
Well-
about the editing. There might have been good choreography, but there's a lot of quick cuts,
There
and
are.
it's just not as satisfying to watch.
See,
Like,
that's
so
the thing.
There's one thing that they do in the first one that I didn't notice that if they did it in this one. But in the first one, there's like this way that they like move the camera whenever Blade lands a punch.
Like a shaky cam
It's
look?
like it's not like a shaky cam. It's just like a pulse of the
Like
camera.
his
Yeah.
shockwave from his punch hit the camera.
Yeah, they kind of do that thing where, and it adds like that effect of like power, and that's what they did in the first one. And I didn't notice them doing it in this, so it might have been like the same kind of style of fighting. Perhaps I didn't really make
we
note
know
of that.
we know
but-
Wesley Snipes can actually do his own
Yeah.
choreography
Right.
quite well. So you can tell it's there. It's just it's filmed in a less satisfying way.
Yeah.
And later on, they do have some good stuff.
Well, that
will-
might. Sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I will piggyback on Reese here because I did watch a movie about all their workout training, and they did go through a whole lot of work to make sure that these actors and people were in fighting shape for this. And they did have an official choreographer who was, trained well in boxing, kickboxing, a bunch of different fighting styles. And so I think, it comes down to editing because they're definitely doing things authentically, but the editing I noticed was really distracting because there were so many cuts, and that was almost more noticeable because of watching Blade 2, where he tried, like, Del Toro wanted to limit the amount of cuts in fight scenes.
Yeah.
So watching this, it's almost like you're hyper aware of it.
Yeah.
Because it's so different.
Another thing that I noticed right after we're introduced to Blade is that the big difference from this movie that differentiates it from 1 and 2 is the production design is so lacking in this one, in my personal opinion. The movie looks bland. There's no real color palette to anything. It's just what you see is what you get. We're gonna fight in this warehouse, and then we're gonna fight in this office building, and then we're gonna there's no like eye candy anywhere.
Hey, there
No,
is
Jessica Biel.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I
She's
mean?
some eye candy.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. It's just a very gray movie, like in tone and feel and look.
I feel like it's very similar to the first because similar to the first, it's all done, not all of it, but a lot of it is done at night. And there's a lot of yellows still. They both carry over.
I think there's a lot more use of color in the first movie, and we had the same debate about the first one. The first one's got blues, it's got reds, it's got oranges.
Primarily blue heavy.
Yeah, but that was our argument.
Yes.
But I think the first one it looks better than this one.
You're biased.
I'm not biased.
Are you saying that you're not biased towards that movie?
So
I think that a visual aesthetic is really important, and it will literally hurt a movie for me if it doesn't look good.
Here,
and
let
I
me-
think just as
I'll say perhaps the coloring and the lighting is all right in this one and the first one, but the first one had a lot more style and like it really fit the mood. But
I
this
think
one,
it's camera work. I think the lighting
that
honestly
too.
didn't. Well, I know, but the thing is, the lighting didn't feel that much different across the three for me. I know there are slight differences, obviously, but I think this one it was mainly the camera work that made it feel different, not the lighting.
what I'm getting at is the vibe of the movie itself fit the lighting in the first one better than the vibe of the movie in this fits its.
yeah, I think
lighting.
they should have carried the Del Toro.
It's hard to explain.
The Del Toro touch of just.
Well, they wanted to have Del Toro for this.
I know, but like I wish they had carried over some of that aesthetic. It is completely dropped from this one. Yeah. Completely.
I was using that as a segue to say, hey, Del Toro was actually supposed to do this movie, but then he was going to go do Hellboy instead.
Hey, aren't you glad?
Which I think is
I'm very happy about that.
This movie looks like an episode of The Arrow. Not to say that that's a bad show, but it just like has that TV
CW
quality
feel.
to it.
All of Blade, though, even in the first movie, I thought this would make a very good Marvel TV show. It felt like a Marvel TV show to me. And this is like what? I mean, the first one was in the 90s, so well before.
Yeah. Enough about aesthetics, though. Let's talk about Blade and now Whistler, who's back. I mean, he already came back, but this didn't this just feel off? Like their relationship?
This just felt like a continuation of the second one, but in my mind, it felt like the writers were deciding, no, we wanted to kill him in the first one, so we're killing him again. You know, to continue with something else.
It's so funny though. His death is so like
unceremonious.
Yes, it's just like, oh, that blew up. He's dead.
Yeah,
on to the next scene.
I did like the moment they had together where he's kind of explaining how he can't do it on his own. I actually felt something there.
I did, but I just kind of similar to my problem with the second movie. I feel like there's something missing in between. They sort of just jump into a new storyline where all of these movies I know are supposed to be part of the same storyline, but they all feel like someone trying to rebrand it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It kind of started over differently.
Yeah.
So it just, I know they're connected, but they don't really connect in my mind.
Yeah.
The first one just did it so much better.
Yeah.
With that,
well,
you
that's
didn't
also
even
an origin story.
Yeah,
well,
but you didn't even really know him in the first one, and that just like hit you. Just the way Wesley Snipes reacts to it, and just
I think maybe this is an unpopular opinion. I haven't done much research on this honestly at all of what people think of his performance, but I think Wesley Snipes is definitely phoning it in this movie. Like he's fine. Like, he gets by just because he's Wesley Snipes, but he wasn't giving me anything, really. Whereas in the first movie especially, and kind of the second one, he was still in it, you know? Like, this one's like, he's coasting.
It felt like he had a little bit more going on when you learned a little bit more about the backstory with him. He was a little bit more to deal with, I think, in this one. I think he was going through some.
I heard he was a bit of a diva on set.
A little bit.
Apparently, this is all kind of rumor and conjecture, but it's been kind of confirmed by two actors, both Ryan Reynolds and Patton Oswalt. But apparently, he would walk around set and would not respond to people unless they called him Blade. And he would only talk to the director through Post-it notes.
Yeah, he would have people give the Post-it notes out, and he would sign Blade on it. At least that's what Patton Oswalt said.
Yeah, and in an interview, I think Ryan Reynolds was asked like how it was working with Wesley Snipes, and he was like, "I didn't work with Wesley Snipes. I worked with Blade." That's so good.
Never once met Wesley Snipes.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Oh, that's good.
But I think maybe again, rumor, speculation. I think maybe some of that maybe got to his head, and he kind of thought like, I can sleepwalk through this thing.
So I think the issue, at least from the little that I looked into it, was that he was a little disappointed in the direction the entire movie went. It seemed like they were queuing up this movie, or this movie was supposed to queue up the other side characters.
Yeah, even though Snipes had a hand in picking the director.
Yeah. Well, I know, but I think he was disappointed the direction it ended up going, and the fact that it felt like he took less. It was less screen time for him, so they could build these other characters, so they could jumpstart another franchise afterwards. So he felt a little disappointed. So he didn't really want to be in it some of the time.
Yeah. So maybe it's just a mix of things, and who knows? Maybe there's nothing wrong at all. Who can say? So what do y'all think of the Night Stalkers? Both Ryan Reynolds as Hannibal King and Jessica Biel as Abigail Whistler.
It feels a little kind of on the nose now. That's not the right way to phrase it.
It's
but
a little on the nose.
I don't know.
I mean, I know what you mean, though.
They're
that makes,
two
it
big
does
names
kinda make
now.
sense.
So seeing them in there, it just feels like they were trying to appeal to the audience. But back then, I guess Ryan Reynolds only did romantic comedy, so it was very new for him to be in this role.
Yeah.
I could definitely see this as something of a prelude to Deadpool. Mm-hmm. At least as far as him like being quippy. I'd say it doesn't really fit in this movie though. I liked the quips, but the way they followed them up, it didn't have me laughing the way I know it was supposed to.
It had the writing, and I don't know if Ryan Reynolds had a hand in,
I think
the writing.
he probably did.
But it seemed like there were funny ideas in what he was saying, but it was all coded in curse words that didn't feel like they needed to be there, or vulgarities that didn't really make it any funnier.
I definitely felt they were trying to make this more serious, more gritty, you know, and by throwing in things that were a little more traumatic, or, the occasional curse word and then the flash of someone's bush when he's showing his tattoo.
Wait, George Bush was in this?
Yes.
Yeah. You just see the top of it. We don't have to linger on that. But yeah, I think Ryan Reynolds or Hannibal King is hit or miss. I think he gets better as the movie goes along.
Yeah.
But the first introduction to him I thought was semi-lacking.
I was just happy to see him. At the introduction, I was like, "Hey, Ryan Reynolds, nice."
Yeah.
And then after that, I was kind of disappointed.
I didn't mind him. I thought he was fine. I thought I was gonna dislike him more.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I didn't.
The first time he was on screen, I was very concerned. I saw him, I was like, I don't think he fits the serious tone of the movie, but as it went on, I actually liked him more and more.
But Jessica Biel, I actually have always really liked her, and I think she is very well cast for it. She honestly kind of reminds me of Alicia Vikander. Is that what it is?
Oh wow! I hadn't really thought about that.
Not looks wise, but the way they approach their roles. So when Vikander was training for Tomb Raider, it actually reminded me a lot of when I was listening to Jessica Biel's training, that she just kind of throws her entire self into the working regimen, and so
that's cool. It's
just I don't know. She's one of those actresses that I think really does pull off a fighting role.
Yeah, I heard that on the set at one point they asked her to aim her arrow at the camera just to get a good shot, and she was like 50 feet away, and apparently it was behind protective glass except for a small pinhole that for the lens to kind of peek through to get the shot, and apparently she fired right at the thing and broke the camera. And it was like
she was going through rigorous archery training for this. Cool. So she was very, very good.
Didn't you say she did 4 hours worth of training?
Yeah, so they would do 4 hours of training every morning, and that would start with cardio and then go straight into weight training. And then after that, she would do combat training, and after that was an hour of archery, and amounted to about 4 hours a day.
Wow. You know what I have to say about that? Frickin' showcase it in the movie.
Oh, they do. She gets crop tops and like archery training moments.
Yeah, there's a montage there.
There's a montage, but there were none of the shots that they shot looked like she actually shot them. It looked like, oh, she's pulling the arrow and shooting it, and then they cut to the board and it hits in the right spot. Yeah. It's like that. You can do that in any movie. Like show real choreography.
Yeah.
What were you saying, AJ?
Just to follow up on that, I mean, I did see that Jessica Biel does have that work ethic. And I think she kind of gets either a bad rap, or she may just be one of those actors that really didn't click with Hollywood and that lifestyle. And this is all speculation, but, they fade away from the limelight because they may just not really want to pursue that world anymore.
Yeah.
But I definitely appreciate the work ethic, like Irina mentioned. And as far as Ryan Reynolds go, I think he said that this role as Hannibal King definitely helped him land the role of Deadpool, actual Deadpool, not the X-Men Origins one.
The real Deadpool.
So this is like, what, 4, 5 comic book characters that he's played on film now?
Yeah, Green Lantern, 2 different Deadpools. I mean, they're the same, but let's be honest, they're different.
R.I.P.D. was, I think, a comic book.
Oh, yeah, R.I.P.D. And this
This reminded me of R.I.P.D. actually a little bit.
Yeah,
That's
but
crazy.
his comedy here definitely is reminiscent of Deadpool, and it kind of made me question: like, is this just Ryan Reynolds being Ryan Reynolds, or is it just coincidence?
I think it's Ryan Reynolds being Ryan Reynolds, honestly.
Yeah. But I thought the levity was welcome in the tone of the movie. I think it was just too frequent.
Yeah.
I would agree.
I think it almost came across to me as Ryan Reynolds kind of going off script, and then the people filming enjoying it and just including that in there when it wasn't really meant to be part of the tone of this movie. But
especially when he's paired with like his antagonist or the main antagonist of the movie also, but he's supposed to be almost a foil for this character, I guess, and it just like does not click at all because the antagonist, she's like, I don't understand that character at all. And so like you have a mismatch between him and the relationship and the history of that. It doesn't really work.
Yeah.
I don't know what Parker Posey is doing in this movie.
Dude, I was so confused. And maybe it's partly the contact lenses, but I could not get what she was trying to act from scene to scene. Like, I by the end of it, I assumed, oh, she's just kind of crazy. But I don't know. Her mood wasn't really carrying over.
It was unhinged. That's how I would describe it.
I got unhinged, but there were a lot of lines she had to act that just didn't work.
Later in the movie, but so I don't forget it, a line that I just had to really it folded my brain into, I just couldn't understand it. She says, "Stop saying the word dick. You're provoking my envy." I'm like, what does that
it's
mean?
like, who wrote this character and why?
I don't know.
Ryan Reynolds.
I don't know who this is. But it's like, I do kind of like the idea of an unhinged vampire female leader. Like, that's cool. There's so many ideas in this that I think are cool. Yeah. But they don't showcase it in a way that makes sense or really actually adds. Yeah, exactly. And that's one of them where she's just not really developed, and she doesn't have really anything threatening about her in my mind. She's just kind of weird and has.
It was almost
these
like trying to harken
moments.
back to Deacon Frost from the first one, but it was like
She's also one of the ones that looks like she's. Yeah, she's also one of the ones that looks like she's struggling the most to act through like the weird contact lenses and the teeth.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it seemed like almost a hindrance for her.
Oh, the teeth were definitely cumbersome. It looked that way.
Yeah,
it looked like the plastic ones you wear as a kid for Halloween.
Definitely,
yeah, exactly.
Like even blades looked that way too. So.
Okay, before we move on, we learned that the Night Stalkers are working on this bio weapon that can kill Drake or all the vampires, but they're kind of worried that it could also kill Blade because it's an airborne virus that just kind of attacks every single vampire and stops their hearts and all that. Mm-hmm. What do we think about this plot development here?
Too simple. Like, I guess...
It makes it easy to follow.
It does, but there's just... I don't know. Like...
I don't know.
Honestly, in my mind, I was like... So are they deciding that this is the last movie of the franchise? Because what do you fight in Blade when there are no vampires
This
left?
is a big plot hole or maybe not a plot hole, but something funny at the end that we'll wrap back around to.
Okay.
But
it does feel like they knew that this was going to be the last one, though.
No.
No, well, even in the trailer, they're like, he fought this, then he fought the next big thing, and now finally, the biggest thing of them all.
Well,
Dracula.
If
What
you watch
about
the
himself?
unrated cut, Drake doesn't actually die at the end.
Yeah.
Nor should he, I guess.
I didn't think he died either because he didn't turn into a crisp. So.
Yeah. No crisp.
Because he's the OG vampire.
OGs don't crisp.
All right, let's move on with the story. Eager to test Blade, Drake isolates him from the Night Stalkers, as he considers them unworthy of challenging him. He explains his view that all humans and vampires are inferior in his eyes, and that he intends to wipe them from the earth. Abigail finds evidence of the vampire's final solution, a network of farms where comatose humans are drained of their blood for vampire consumption. It is said that hunting humans are too inefficient in harvesting blood, so the vampires decide to kidnap homeless people to be used as blood castles, with the help of corrupted cops like Chief Martin Vreed to produce blood for them to consume. Told the humans are all brain dead, Blade deactivates the farm's life support systems and executes Vreed with a shot in the back. The best line in the movie is at that point, by the way. Returning to the Night Stalkers' hideout, Abigail and Blade find all of them dead except for King and Summerfield's daughter Zoe, both of whom have been taken captive. A recording left by Summerfield, Daystar's creator, reveals that Drake's blood is all that is needed to make it complete and effective. King is tortured by the vampires for information, but refuses to talk, even when they threaten to turn him and feed him Zoe's blood. My favorite line is, you have 20 seconds to leave. 20. Bang.
Terrible.
He had a line also in this movie that was similar to the first movie. He's like, mother...
Yeah.
But I think, I don't know. I think while I do believe that Blade's character is a little simple in this one, I do appreciate that they kind of tried to make him a little along the lines of the Punisher, where it's just they do have a moral compass, but they don't really sweat killing if someone is in any sense evil or supporting
yeah, he's not
evil.
he's not Batman or Spider-Man where it's just like, I have no killing claws.
Yeah, so I actually enjoy that about this movie. I kind of like seeing that. And I think having Abigail and Hannibal King as sort of balancing that out does help. So that trio, I don't mind them as a trio. It kind of makes sense in my mind.
Yeah. My only problem is, like, I do see Blade as a lone wolf type character.
Yeah. Who's
more interesting when he's kind of figuring it all out by himself, just kind of Terminatoring into every situation.
Right.
I think all he needs is that Whistler relationship. Like that duo really works well for his character. But it's a new movie. You got to mix things up. New faces. There's got to be different dynamics to it, and so I understand the direction they went with this.
Yeah. It was kind of weird. I felt like he was almost a little bit sidelined by Jessica Biel. Like,
really?
Towards the end.
I thought they were all pretty, like...
I thought they were well balanced.
I can see where you're coming from, though, Noah, because the whole storyline of her being, Whistler's daughter and trying to anchor her, give her legitimacy by way of Whistler, it felt like was forced because... Here we have Whistler, who was supposed to be important in the beginning, like Irina mentioned. Yeah. It's anticlimactic, like his death here. Just, why did he die if he was so important? Well, it's like that only purpose of him dying was to introduce Jessica Biel, but that whole storyline of her being related to him was just, it didn't really pan out.
Yeah, it has no point because they never bring that up again.
Yeah, if she didn't have the last name of Whistler, you would not ever draw the connection that they are in any way related or associated with one another. I do think one of this movie's critical flaws is not having Whistler there longer to kind of establish that relationship.
Yeah, to pass the baton, if you will.
Yeah,
not only that, she didn't seem to be like emotionally distracted by her dad dying.
She was born out of wedlock and raised to be a vampire killer. So I don't know. Maybe their connection wasn't as strong. But yeah, you do bring up a point that it really isn't clear. And if they just avoided the whole her being Abigail Whistler, it wouldn't have changed anything about the movie.
Yeah, I do think that this was actually, I was reading this, I think it was a script problem because she was originally cast, or was going to be cast as Van Helsing. And that's her character in the comics. They were going to carry that over, but this was the same year that Van Helsing came out.
Okay.
So he was like, let's just make her Abigail Whistler. So maybe that's why the thread's not there, but it's still
bad.
It still doesn't excuse like this total lack of any connection between the two.
Yep.
So another issue I have with this is you have Drake or Dracula chained up by these vampires, and they're kind of all trying to figure out what to do with them, but then they're just like let him out, and it's like that dynamic on their side of things also doesn't work.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on with this movie, where I think the first time you watch it, you're not really paying attention that much to the plot or people's motives. You're just, here are some characters, they want to do this thing, fine, I'm on board with that. But when you really reflect on why everyone is motivated to do what they're doing, it doesn't really make sense. They're trying to create these team-ups where you don't understand why they need these team ups. Like what you're bringing up with Dracula and these, I guess, this coalition of vampires that just want to infect the world. I it's still not really clear in my mind why, but why would he even associate with them to begin with? Like, why is he just suddenly in league with them? I'm not sure. Like, what's holding these people together? Oh, we didn't even talk about the whole Blade being framed.
Yeah.
Like, okay, conceptually, I like it. I like the idea that, oh, now he's going to be chased by the cops, and that's just a whole other hindrance because he doesn't want to kill humans because they're innocent. But then that just kind of crumples in on itself because apparently all these cops are familiars anyway. So
Yeah.
why I don't
They've
know.
all kind of just succumbed. They've all kind of just succumbed to the fact that, oh yeah, the vampires are going to take over the world.
Yeah. I don't
Also,
know.
they call the human subject. I mean, the human whatever they're doing. They're reproducing humans in a comatose state, and they call them blood castles. I'm like, blood bags is right there, guys. You're calling them blood castles?
Blood
Bags
castles?
of blood.
Yeah, I mean, no, yeah. When they go down and he kills the police officer, there were all those humans just in the bags. That call them Mad Max took it later.
Blood bags.
Call them blood bags. Come on, that takes the humanity away
Honestly,
from it.
that was probably one of the more disturbing moments too, because when you see them in
Yeah.
those bags,
Oh, yeah.
and you start thinking, "Wow, they're still alive." That's disturbing.
So the thing is, I liked that scene. The one thing that pulled me out of it was the fact that this guy that Blade has captured was, really worried about, oh, they're going to kill me if I tell you what's happening. And then all of a sudden he convinces him, I'll kill you. And then he's like, all right, I'll just tell you everything, but in a very casual way. And so it just didn't make sense.
No, it was a lot of just reading off scripts.
Yeah.
Just kind of like, here's the information that needs to be said in this scene to progress the plot.
These are people that we put in bags so they can take their blood, so they can survive.
Well,
end.
it was basically, oh no, please, I can't. They'll kill me. I'll kill you. Oh, okay. Oh, so these are all humans that we've been draining of blood. Yeah, they feed on this, and don't worry, they're comatose. They don't know what's going on.
I just got, when you just did that, it's that unceremonious, like, dialogue options in a video game.
Yeah.
Where it's like, there's a narrative through line that they're trying to display, but you picked the option that goes against the narrative, and then it defaults to a different, like, response that sounds different.
I was wondering why he didn't just, cut the guy's hand off and, just put that in the scanner and go investigate himself.
Yeah, I don't know.
He needed
not?
him to explain what was happening. How else
It's
was
just-
we going to know?
But you could, visual cues,
So a fun thing about this moment, though, is that apparently this was directly from the first movie. I don't know if you guys knew that. Apparently Deacon Frost had a scene that wasn't used in the movie where he is actually unveiling blood bags, exactly like that.
No
and
wonder
they
it was-
decided not to use it, and
No
they're like,
wonder
let's
it
just
was
bring it
good.
back in the third movie.
Yeah.
It's funny because the scene where all the people are being shown is one of the moments that I'm like, oh wow, something interesting's happening.
Perked up a little bit.
Wow, happening. I can focus on this.
They took that whole thing from them. And I think you can actually see that clip too, where Deacon Frost is opening up the room to show it to people. I'm like,
Yeah.
and I think they did a better job displaying it in this movie, but it literally went nowhere.
Yeah.
So, meanwhile, the Night Stalkers' hideout has been raided by Drake, and he's, done his team dirty. They're all dead. What'd y'all think of all this? And also, who's this girl?
Oh, the blind lady?
No, the girl she's taking care of. This is how...
Her daughter or something?
Yeah, there's the
Yeah,
there's
his
the blind
daughter.
lady and her daughter.
Her daughter, I mean.
Okay. This...
Zoe.
I literally forgot this movie as I watched it. So, when the girl shows up, for one, this is sad, and maybe I shouldn't be admitting this, but I figured out two things in a scene that I probably should have known long before. One, that the lady is blind, and two, that she has a daughter.
Okay, so one of those you shouldn't feel that bad about because they don't talk about her being blind, It took me like the third scene she was in for me to realize
Yeah,
that she was blind.
it took me a minute too, and you know why it takes you longer? Because everyone frickin' wears sunglasses.
They do. No matter what time of day it is,
Like-
if they're indoors or outdoors.
Oh, this lady's
so
cool. She's wearing
that's
sunglasses
why. That's
inside.
why.
Like Blade.
But yeah, they're all killed. I think the closest thing this movie comes to any sort of emotion for me was the death of that lady and Abigail Whistler, kind of crying in agony.
Yeah.
Even though I thought the acting wasn't like quite perfectly on point, it was still like, okay, this is definitely more meaningful than Whistler's death. It's more shocking because she's kind of like Christ posed in front of them.
Yeah. I could have done without the use it.
Oh yeah.
Use it.
He does it 3 times.
Use it. Okay.
Yeah. The thing
Calm
is that
down,
needed.
Blade.
The thing is that needed to happen later. Like,
Yeah.
if you, and this is another problem that I already mentioned, but it's coming back to haunt this movie later on, and it's just the fact that Blade's or Wesley Snipes isn't completely in this movie. What the scene needed to be was Blade seeing her and for once like breaking his normal character and feeling some sort of further
And having
empathy
a
for
moment.
someone.
Yeah.
And like walking down those staircases, like maybe grabbing her shoulders and then saying to her face, like, use it. Or like, like
my best friend
know-
died in front of me as well. Your
Yeah.
dad.
You know what they needed in this?
What?
They needed for him to be her mentor. That would have been such a good baton pass.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'll
if
take
he
you on.
dies and then like he feels responsible now
Yeah.
for her.
Yeah, I do think they also want to kind of establish her as someone who can fend for herself, though. And he
Right.
doesn't really.
And I
Or a
liked that.
fatherly figure then.
So I
or
think
something like that.
The issue that we're talking about here, and we used to have the reverse for other movies we've reviewed where we talked about how, like, the question of who is the villain? There is no clear villain. In this one, it's who is the protagonist? I don't know who I'm supposed to be, like, really focused on.
Yeah.
Because Blade is just doing Blade's old,
Song
thing.
and dance.
Yeah. But then you have this Abigail character who doesn't really get as much screen time, but then she has this almost origin story moment where, all the people that were close to her are killed. And you would think that seems like prime protagonist material, but she's still kind of a sideline character.
Yeah.
We're not really channeled through one individual person to actually feel much of anything when anything happens.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I think they should have just, again, when in doubt, just frame it on Blade. Or maybe not in this case, because Wesley Snipes didn't seem as invested.
Well, if they had framed it on him, maybe he would have been more invested.
I don't know.
Maybe, yeah, it could have been the script issue, and that's why he was just, not given 100%. Who knows? But yeah, the movie doesn't have a focus on a protagonist for sure. All right. Let's talk about how Hannibal King is kidnapped and basically just all of that situation. Actually, I guess we can move on to that in the next one because he is kidnapped in this section, but the end of that is resolved later on. So I'll move on. Blade and Abigail arrive and free the captives. Drake eventually bests Blade in single combat and prepares to kill him with his own sword. Abigail fires the Dawnstar arrow, but Drake catches it before it strikes him. He drops it to the floor by Blade, not realizing the danger it poses to him. Abigail shoots Drake with another arrow, this time wounding him. Blade uses the distraction to stab Drake with the Daystar arrow, triggering a chemical reaction that completes the Daystar virus. Releasing it into the air, the virus becomes airborne, killing Danica and the rest of the vampires. As Drake slowly succumbs to his wounds and the virus, he praises Blade for fighting honorably, but warns him that he will eventually succumb to his need for blood, thus proving that Blade already is the new type of vampire. Using the last of his power, Drake shapeshifts into Blade. The FBI recover the body and declare Blade legally dead. King narrates that the virus did not kill Blade, as the human half of his heart did not stop beating. It only slowed down, causing him to enter into a comatose state until his body was ready to fight again. Blade awakens several months later, ready to continue his war on all vampire kind. I'm sorry, but what vampire kind? That was my bar that I wanted to talk about. Aren't they all dead?
We're all gone.
Well, no, now he's the new villain.
Anyway, let's talk about the whole Hannibal King and the rescuing of him, and this final action sequence. What did y'all think?
I enjoyed them all showcasing their unique skills. I always look forward to that when you have a large cast of fighters and each one is a little different. And Ryan Reynolds with his more boxing style, and then the archery being shown with, Abigail's character.
So with her, I didn't think they did enough archery. I thought they pretty much had her fist fighting the whole time, and then she shot a couple arrows at the end.
And she's pretty much the reason Drake gets destroyed.
Yeah.
Well, it's like a point blank shot at a huge demon's back.
Yeah.
But I was kind of upset about that because you show this whole archery montage, and then she doesn't really showcase her archery skills.
It's true. I think we've grown used to all the movies that happened after this, though, because we've had. Although he was before, but we've had the Hunger Games, we've had Hawkeye from the Avengers, we've had all sorts of
Arrow.
Those are
Arrow
cool.
even for sure. Yeah, but I didn't think it was bad. I actually thought the movie kind of picked up in the end for me a little bit. I really was not having a good time with this, and the end picks it back up.
They had a couple of cool deaths with the vampires
And those dogs sliding off the building.
That is one of my favorite scenes, actually, and it's the moment where Ryan Reynolds finally clicked with me a little bit.
Yeah.
Because up until then, I thought it was a little, the jokes
when he's getting
weren't-
tortured.
Yeah, the jokes weren't landing. But with the dogs and just them chasing after him and how he just grabs onto that bar and they all just go sliding. It was good. And then how he just kind of backs up and hits his head on that bar and falls into the...
Oh, yeah.
I was like, okay, that was what I was looking for.
I think that was the best way to not have someone literally kill a dog.
Yes, that's also one of my favorite lines that he says, too, where they're like, where's my dog? And have you checked the lobby?
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah. I felt like someone different directed that scene from the rest of the movie, though.
So, the thing is, I never had a problem with his quips. It was more just the way that the film was. The way they were presented was wrong.
I see what you mean.
It just kind of, it's oh, that would be funny in the right, if...
In Deadpool. That'd be funny in Deadpool.
Yeah, exactly.
The fact that he's quippy, but they also decided he was the perfect one to narrate everything.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sorry. I love Ryan Reynolds, but he does not really have, aside from Deadpool, a narrator's voice. Every time I hear him try to narrate something, I'm just like, this just doesn't really put me in the right
it was so jarring right at the
headspace.
beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
In fact, they shouldn't have done any narrating.
Irina and I were watching this together, and when it first started, I heard Ryan Reynolds' voice. I looked over at Irina, and she's like, "Yep, that is exactly who you think it is."
I feel like whenever Ryan Reynolds got this role, he had just super impressed people with his comedy or just how funny he was in the moment, and they were like, yeah, we want some of that in our movie. Yeah, do that. Yeah.
It seemed like he barely got this role, though, because before this, he had nothing that showed that he could do this role. So this was
auditions, though.
I know, but they apparently people were very weary about him being cast in this role because before this, he was all romantic comedy.
I think wary is the word you're looking for.
Weary, wary, worry.
I actually didn't correct you last time you made that. Anyway, but why choose Hannibal King as the character to narrate, after the fact?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that. I was so confused by that.
It's a break in style from the first two movies to have, voiceover bookending the movies. But, if you're going to do it, why is Hannibal King the one telling the story?
I think it has to be one of the Whistlers.
Dude,
that's
what I was thinking.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been much better as one of the Whistlers. Or you started off with the first Whistler, then end it with the second.
Mm-hmm. I do think this final fight with Dracula/Drake, it is too quick, but I do like the implementation of practical with CGI effects of his final form, I guess, or his other form. I think they integrated the costume really well with the face that was CGI. And anytime he opened up and snarled, it was like, oh, wow, that actually looks pretty good.
Well,
but yeah, I thought the final fight was a little too quick. And maybe that was just a budgetary thing. They just couldn't have that much effects going on for an extended amount of time. But nevertheless, I was still I was satisfied where it ended.
Dude,
I guess
I was kind of upset that Blade himself didn't just completely subdue this guy. He pretty much lost, and then like an arrow was shot in the dude's back, and he was like, oh, "Okay, I guess I could do this now."
Yeah, but that also goes back to what Irina said. Is the movie kind of wants to frame, or I don't know if you specifically said it, but it seems like it wants to frame the story around Abigail.
Yeah, which would be fine if they set it up that way.
Yeah, but
like,
it doesn't quite successfully do it because it's
a
a Blade
movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe that's why.
Yeah,
because it's more personal.
I actually liked her character too.
Yeah.
It just felt like
disjointed.
like, well, yeah, exactly.
Because why does if these guys in the beginning save Blade, you're all on board. Okay, these guys know what they're doing, and then they have this huge secret hideout with this underground organization that's seemingly on the ball. Yet Blade doesn't know about them, and one of them is related to Whistler. That doesn't really click. But then all that organization and skill and talent that they're doing just kind of falls through in the end. And it's kind of an underdog story against this big bad with Dracula, but it just doesn't. The progression doesn't feel linear. Like you start with one characterization of these characters, but those characters by the end are there's no. I don't know. It just feels like it's different people in the beginning and the end.
Yeah,
Definitely.
and inconsistency.
Not only that, literally Ryan Reynolds narrating at the beginning, he says, "Yeah, we were just along for the ride with Blade, and Blade was just carrying us pretty much the whole time." And there was not a single moment in that movie where I felt like Blade could have done this by himself.
No.
Like,
Yeah.
They even say that with Whistler's character where he's like, you can't do this on your own, Blade.
Yeah. But like, why set up a movie right from the get-go like Blade is this Judge Dredd character that is just, a juggernaut going to destroy the thing, and then not have a movie that has him do that?
Yeah, he gets arrested by normal police officers.
Exactly. What? So they had 1 and 2 both have that scene where they get that groove of they put the music on and the groove goes, and then he goes ham on a bunch of people. And in this one, it's like they have the groove, and then he doesn't go ham on a bunch of people. He just,
Yeah, they just try to manufacture it.
Yeah.
Where there's nothing there.
Yeah, I don't know. It felt pretty anticlimactic to me.
Yeah, agreed. So, obviously, by the end of this, with Drake not a crisp, as you said, Noah.
Yep.
I think it's pretty safe to assume that he's
alive.
They implied for him to.
Yeah, I think there's actually an alternate ending too, depending on the cut.
Yeah, there is. I think it's definitely implied though that we want more Blade movies.
Dude,
after this.
we've seen this many times
Oh crap!
before.
We killed all the vampires.
The post-credit
Drake's
scene.
not dead.
Drake is not a pork rind.
Where they just, come the last scene is them breathing, and you're like, oh, great, yep, I knew that was coming.
Yep.
But whatever.
But hey, at least we can. It ends on Blade, killing a bunch of vampires that don't exist because they should all be dead.
True.
Which is cool. But that's the end.
Yeah.
We're at the end?
Yeah, that's the end. Any final thoughts and feelings before we move on to the next portion of this podcast?
It's quite sad.
It's sad. In what way? I feel like that could mean many different things.
Watching this movie, there are moments that could have been really, really good moments, and that there are so many things that detract from that. And a lot of hard work went into it, especially from particular actors that were in this film. So it's really a shame to see something where their hard work is kind of paled by the way the movie is presented.
Yeah.
So
there's a good movie in here somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is really off topic, but Jessica Biel would actually make a really good Black Widow.
She would.
It's funny you say that. Irene and I, when we were watching this, I noticed that the way they set her up in a lot of scenes reminded me of Black Widow in Iron Man 2.
Yeah, I mean,
very similar.
her style is pretty similar. I
You
think
know why
it's
that
just
is?
the way she looks. I guess.
And this is something I really appreciate with choreographers, or basically the direction that people give female leads in action films, is that they play to their strengths. Like they try to figure out what actually makes sense for a female to accomplish. And so that's why I think you're drawing that comparison, because it is very similar. They try to appeal to the feminine strengths. So it's,
What do you mean?
and it
She
makes
never
sense.
she never jumps on a dude's head and swings him down with her legs.
That is actually a very legitimate way to do that.
It is.
I know, but that's what I associate with Black Widow. That's
Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
that
that
was Iron Man 2.
That was
Actually,
such a cool move.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the thing is,
yeah, I
like
love
they
that.
because they don't have the brute force that a lot of these, strapping young men do. They kind of have to basically cause people to fall on their own swords.
Yeah.
in a way. So
Another way off topic before we move on,
Sure.
since we're open to that now.
Yeah.
Did you notice how Ryan Reynolds has his vampire tat right above his bush, as we already talked about?
Yeah.
Since we were watching the movie, I noticed how they scan into the warehouse. They all have it on their wrist, and they just put it in the wrist scanner. So, how did Hannibal do it?
how does
just
he
had
scan
to
in?
drop trow, I guess.
Just buck naked.
Hey man, look away for a minute.
Just like I hope they have like one of those just handheld scanners, like just for unique cases like his.
He's the one character though that would be completely shameless about it. And
Oh
just-
yeah.
He would just drop his pants and like, hey, what are you looking at?
Yeah,
Kinda
that is true.
Jealous.
jealous.
All right, that wraps up the story portion of this podcast. We're going to take a quick break, and on the other side, we're going to review this movie and talk about the franchise as a whole. So stay tuned. Welcome back. Let's review
Yeah, baby.
Blade Trinity. David, you've got our scores there in a bowl. You want to pull them at random?
Oh, I got it.
All right.
First up, AJ with a 5.
Yeah, so this is a departure from the first two movies. It's kind of just feels like a tired mishmash where they're throwing the ingredients of the characters in for something that they want to be cool and cinematic, but they don't develop anybody's character all the way. They don't follow through with the gravitas that Blade has in the first two. So it's not a, central figure movie, and it's not a team-up movie. It's somewhere in the middle. So I don't know, they just try to pick and choose elements and throw things in, and just didn't really mesh together well.
Yeah, I agree.
There's elements of potential, but for someone who, maybe the director here is more focused on direction than the writing. I'm not sure exactly, but also the editing, like Irina brought up early on, it just feels hectic. And that's the best way to put this is this movie feels hectic. It's just I don't know. No one's
it's
really
trying to
on the same
distract you
page,
from
and
the lack of substance.
yeah. So it's still entertaining enough. I mean, the visuals were kind of cheesy at some points, and the aesthetic of it still carried over a little bit, but I don't know. It's enjoyable enough, but it's definitely a departure from the first ones. So
Yeah, agreed.
yeah,
So sticking with that 5 then?
I think so.
All right. Who we got next?
Next up, David with a 6.
All right.
I'm just going to go ahead and start with the fact that I did enjoy this movie. I feel like there was a good movie in here. I think, was it Patton Oswalt? Is that his name?
Patton.
What's his name?
Oswalt.
Patent Oswald. No, it's Patton Oswalt.
That's what I said.
Patton
Patton Oswalt.
No, you said Patent Oswald.
Patent Oswalt, as he
You
once
said it
said.
with a D, though.
Yeah,
You're
you did. Oswald.
Patent Oswald.
Patent?
That's fine.
Patton?
That's fine. Patton Oswalt.
Piaz.
As good old Pio once said, this movie on its own is kind of like a D-, but
I don't think he said that.
He actually did.
A D-? He
Yes,
said it was
I'm pretty sure.
That's
he
lower
showed
than the
me-
score you
yeah,
gave it.
He showed me the video.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think he gave it a D-, but then he said, but if you look into the amount of work that went into this movie and how much everybody put on the screen, it's like an A++. It's
You mean behind the scenes?
well, they put on the screen. They just decided to get
Edit
rid of
it
some
out.
of it.
Yeah.
There's an editing problem. And I could see a lot of what they were going for. I enjoyed myself. It was a good movie. And I think that it gets too much crap. And in the end, I feel like a 6 is really not that great of a score, but it's definitely not bad.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, you have a valid point where there is work that's gone into it. It just unfortunately didn't make it in the final product.
Yeah.
Yep. Kind of sad. All right, next up is Reese with a 4. We're just going down, 654.
Actually, it went 5, 6, 4.
If
but-
we look at it numerically, we do have a 6 and a 5 and a 4.
Yeah,
Normally
it doesn't
you do
matter.
Anyway.
What
that's fine. That's fine. Yeah, I piggyback off of most of what AJ said. I think this movie just doesn't bring anything new to the table. I also think of the trilogy, it's the only one that doesn't have a vision, really. Like, the first one, it was cohesive. It knew exactly what it was doing. And the second one had this unique visual palette that, distinguished itself from the others. And this one's just kind of like, meh. The look and feel of it just... I'm really big on aesthetics assisting a really good movie or a good idea. I think they really can push it over the edge or push a bad movie over the edge into something that's more tolerable. And this is a bad movie with not a great aesthetic. So it just kind of occupies,
Its own prison.
that. Yeah, exactly. And it just looks like it feels and looks like a TV show episode to me. Blade, or Wesley Snipes, as I've said countless times already, doesn't seem like he's invested in the movie as much as he was in the previous two. I do like Abigail Whistler and Hannibal King to a certain extent. I think they're nice additions to the movie, and they add their own flavor to the proceedings, but I don't think it's in any way enough to save this movie. Also, Blade is an action franchise, so your action better be great. And in this, it is far diminished from how it was in the first two.
Yeah.
You go to a Blade movie to see some really cool kind of kung fu action that's satisfying, and this one doesn't deliver. So for that, it's a 4.
All right. Next up, Noah mirroring Reese with a 4.
Mirror, mirror on the wall.
Who's the fast of them all?
Who's the
Not
forest
Blade
of them
Trinity. Yeah, almost exactly what Reese said. One of the specifically with the action, I really enjoy all the choreography from the first two movies. They have a lot of effect. I'm a sucker for those scenes where he just gets that groovy music going on, or like a little bit of new metal, whatever it is.
The techno beats,
Techno
industrial
beats,
kind
and then
of.
you see him just like throwing vampires everywhere and just destroying everything, and it's beautiful. In this movie, they just didn't have that moment for me that was like, yeah, I love that. He's like, he's busting a move. It was kind of disappointing, and not to mention they kind of added in some characters. You're a little confused about who's really the main character or who you're supposed to follow, because you have Ryan Reynolds as the narrator, but he's actually a side character. And then you have Whistler, who actually has the origin story, and then you have Blade kind of phoning in his role, as Reese said. In addition to that, you don't have a strong villain. You don't have, I don't know. It just felt like
it's a lot of underbaked elements.
It was a very superficial movie that didn't get the superficials right.
Yeah.
So, 4.
Yeah.
I'll stick with it.
Well, there's only one person left, isn't there?
I can already say I'm going to change mine.
Oh, Irina wrote down a 7.
Yeah, but I was changing it to a 6, and I think 7 is just kind of my wishful thinking in a weird way.
Yeah.
Because I really like this concept of Abigail, and I wish she wasn't Whistler's daughter. I wish she was just her own separate character and not validated by, the legacy of her father. But it would have been cool to have a Van Helsing. But I don't know. I feel like I could imagine myself writing fan fiction just for this character in this universe. But yeah, I'm just going to echo everything you guys have said. I think we're all pretty much on the same page, other than the fact that I kind of walked away from this sort of superficially enjoying it just for a lot of the moments that could have been better, but were cool ideas to begin with.
It's fun to speculate on the movie that could have been, that they do have elements of it there.
Yeah. And I think a lot of what bumps this up is just the fact that while the plot and the script is pretty terrible, a lot of these actors really, really tried. And I may not say the same for Wesley Snipes because I don't know
or
what was going on in his head. Or Parker Posey.
Yeah.
I'm so confused.
Bless her soul.
Really don't know what's going on in her head.
But it's just really nice to see actors kind of, take up that challenge. And I think this was a turning point where a lot of actors were wanting to do their own stunt work. Like before this, there were a lot more stunt doubles. This still had stunt doubles, but a lot of the time you're seeing Ryan Reynolds or Jessica Biel doing their own stuff. And like she actually did do archery, and when she's pulling back that arrow, she's doing it with proper form. So I just really appreciate that kind of dedication and attention to detail.
I actually do think Ryan Reynolds got in really good shape for this movie too. Apparently he did a lot of work as well.
He hated it.
Really?
Yeah.
Were you the one who told me, Arena, that he was constantly complaining about how it hurt to even breathe sometimes?
Like, I wouldn't say he was complaining. I would say that he just said, yeah, I was in really good shape, but I never felt like I felt good. So I didn't actually get to enjoy it.
I never felt like I felt good.
Well, it was something along those lines. I'm not repeating it verbatim, but it was just the fact that, to be in that shape, is it worth it? Because you just always feel like you're in pain. So
I'm sure in hindsight, he was like, yeah, I'm glad I did that.
So I'm giving it a 6 because I would still watch it. I can see what they were trying to do. It was very hectic and doesn't, like, a lot of the important moments don't hit you the way they should because you don't get that build up and you don't really know where to look for it. So, I'll stick with a 6 though, up there with you, David.
Woo! Yeah. Let's say like high scores for behind the scenes, but what made it to film?
High scores for effort,
low.
but
A
low scores
for
for
effort.
execution.
Yeah. So I think we have an average of a 5 if I had to guess.
Yeah,
it's like when you do a test and you do the front page, you're like, oh yeah, I did a great job on that front page, and then someone says like, hey, how did that the backside of that page go? And you're like, there was a backside.
Or more accurately, when you actually show all your work on the math equation and then you get the wrong answer.
Oh, I hate that.
Okay, AJ, you want to crunch those numbers real quick?
All right, so again, we have a group average for Blade Trinity at a 5.0. Blade 2 was a 7.0, and Blade was a 7.5. So,
all right,
had a downhill slope here. Across the whole franchise of 3 movies is an average of 6.5. And let's see where that stacks up. Now You See Me 2 had a 5.6, and Soldier had a 4.4. So those bookend Blade Trinity.
All right. I guess I could see that. Dude. Now You See Me 2, I feel like is a little too high up there above this one, but I don't know.
Well, Now You See Me 2 was
in its genre.
Was okay.
Yeah.
I guess for context, right above Now You See Me 2 is Ocean's 12 at 5.7. So something maybe a little funky's going on with those numbers, but
Ocean's 12 wasn't great.
That was the weak one.
Yeah.
You liked it though. All right, let's move on to the reviews. On Rotten Tomatoes, this movie has a 26% with an audience score of 59%.
That's an oof.
Yeah, so it had a pretty big step down from the Blade 1 and 2. Though Blade 1 and 2 didn't have the greatest reviews either. They were like in the higher 50s range or mid 50s, something like that. On Metacritic, this movie has a 38, which is in the red zone, and an audience score of, this one's bad, 2.7 out of 10.
Yikes. Oh.
And on IMDb, it recovered ever so slightly, even though it's still a negative score, with 5.9. So there you go. There's your spread.
That's my 6 right there.
I would say it's mostly negative, but there's some mixed reviews there to kind of balance it out a bit. So box office. This movie released on December 8th, 2004, and it was playing against the opening of Ocean's 12, which we just talked about. The movie had a budget of $65 million. What are y'all's guesses? Irina, I'll have you go first, since you're the adept box office guesser here.
160.
160? Noah?
I was going to go pretty close to what Irina said, so I'll go a little higher. I'll say 177.
And y'all can speak up, just so you know.
177.
AJ?
I'll go low, 75.
75?
I'm going to go with 125.
All right. I think, David, you handily took it there. The box office was $132 million.
Dang it, I was going to go with 130. Not
Really?
that it matters all that much.
Hey, you got it, though.
I was just going to double up what the budget was.
Yeah, $132 million worldwide. It had a lower opening weekend than its predecessors with $16 million, but it released during the winter, so it kind of legged it a little bit to $52 million and is kind of in the same... It's lower, but it's not like that drastically lower than Blade 1 or 2. But yeah, it did less than Blade 2, so and it cost more, so there's that kind of spells trouble for this one.
Yep.
I actually think it probably managed to make its money back. And I think there could have been room for a sequel had the production of this one not been so troubled. I think the writing was kind of on the wall, though, with the rumored bad relationship between the director, David S. Goyer, and Wesley Snipes, and how maybe Wesley Snipes was getting a little too in his head with the character and kind of diva status. But this franchise didn't exactly end. There was a TV series, not starring Wesley Snipes, but it came out after this. It was not successful. It had one season and ended. But there was, up until recently, talks of sequels or spin-offs or crossovers even for the Blade franchise. First, the original director, Stephen Norrington, who actually at one point was going to direct the third until I think he read the script and just wasn't happy with it, so he dropped it. He was going to actually direct a prequel trilogy, or it had mapped out a prequel trilogy to this around the character of Stephen Dorff, or Stephen Dorff's character, who he played Deacon Frost in the first movie. So there's going to be a prequel trilogy around that guy, which I can't imagine like what that would be like.
Yeah.
Like a Blade series without Blade. I don't know.
It's not Blade.
Yeah, but if you could come up with a unique take on a different vampire story, I'm open to it. But that didn't get anywhere, which is I could have predicted that. I mean, how do you pitch that? Like, hey, we want to tell this Deacon Frost origin story, and he was, in my opinion, kind of a mediocre villain in the first one. And it's the same casting too, Stephen Dorff.
We'll call it The Deacon.
Yeah. There was also talks up until 2012 when Marvel acquired Blade, like he was going to cross over with the Underworld franchise. Kate Beckinsale recently revealed this, that there were definitely talks to make a Blade Underworld crossover movie. In my opinion, I think you could connect these two. I think they're close enough.
You could, but would we get a result that we actually enjoy? That's
I don't
the
know.
question.
It would depend on who's
Yeah.
behind it.
Yeah.
But if I were to team him up with any other franchise, the Underworld does make sense.
It does make sense.
I would like to see-
It has the same amount of kind of ridiculous action.
Yeah,
so.
and I'd like to see Lycans in a Blade movie.
Yeah.
Like werewolves. That'd be cool.
It's only a matter of time.
But yeah, this franchise does still have a future, if only by, the name Blade alone. I don't think we're going to see any more Wesley Snipes portrayals of the character. I mean, I think Marvel could maybe do some sort of cameo with him, but recently it was revealed that Mahershala Ali was cast as Blade, and he's going to be taking on that character for Marvel Studios in their fifth phase.
He's going to do a good job.
Yeah,
I
if
think.
there's anyone I could cast for Blade that could take up the mantle,
Mahershala Ali.
Mahershala Ali,
Yeah.
yeah, I think he could do it. So I'm pretty optimistic. I do think they should keep it more mature, though.
Yeah,
I don't.
agree.
This is one Marvel Studios movie you should not make PG-13.
Well, I think they're going to do that with Deadpool as well.
I did hear rumors though that Disney is considering having a adult section to Disney Plus where it's
What?
Well, they've said that if they think it'll be profitable, they do it.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
thing
I'm
is they
Sure, it could be.
they have all these Fox properties that they would not be good PG-13 or
Yeah,
lower,
or
Like,
as
they,
good.
They own Die Hard, Alien, Predator. Like you don't make PG-13 versions of those.
Die Hard,
Yeah,
dang.
yeah.
Can they make adult versions of the children's classics too? Because I would be all about that.
Like
That would be cool.
Do you have
I
one in
would
mind?
love that.
With some of them, it would be cool for sure. Like I want the Dark Little Mermaid.
Well, the problem is though that they're
It's like they
I don't want
almost
them
went
to.
there with Maleficent.
Yeah, almost.
But not at all.
The more and more I think about it, the more upset I am with that acquisition. Because at first I was really excited, and now I'm thinking of all the properties that if they continue this trajectory, everything is going to be somewhat formulaic.
Yeah, it's still very early.
yeah.
It's still very early though. I think we need to see kind of where the chips fall.
I hope so.
Because we really haven't seen what Disney can do with Fox yet. That hasn't manifested in any way because it's still
I'm
so
just
early.
scared based on other things.
Yeah,
Give me some Grimm's fairy tales. That's what we need.
And make them actually
Yes, give us the
authentic.
Frozen that we deserve.
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
That's Hans Christian Andersen.
Anyway, to round out the original Blade trilogy, I actually think they could have kept going because these movies were still pulling like Underworld numbers, and that franchise got 5 movies. Like the Underworld movies typically cost in the 60 to 65 million range, and they make about the same. As
What about their ratings? Like, were they good? I feel like
Underworld is mediocre ratings at best.
Okay,
Like,
so I think what Underworld has above this is that it knows its target audience. Like this one is constantly changing.
Yeah, it's like
throughout the 3 movies.
they're like, we're gonna have an audience that bargain bins these movies for years to come. But I think that's Blade too, though, because especially with Trinity, I feel like Trinity is more in line with like your Resident Evils and your Underworlds. I could have seen this movie or this franchise pumping out 1 or 2 more movies and still have been successful. So that really leads me to believe that it could be like a Wesley Snipes issue.
Yeah.
Well, I think
I don't
also
know.
like you need a strong villain.
Yeah.
All of these kind
Yeah.
of just skirted by on the bare minimum for having a villain.
Yeah, true. And yeah, they still could have used Morbius. I know that was a big character that was being teased to show up in Blade 2 or 3, and it just never manifested. But Trinity's the last one. I think it's a mix of just production trouble, poor reviews, and lower box office. So it's just death by 1,000 cuts, I guess. So just chalk it up to that.
So
Anyway,
dishonorable death or honorable death?
I would say dishonorable because
I
I
would
think
say dishonorable
Yeah,
too.
this-
dishonorable for sure.
so. For our audiences, we do an honorable or dishonorable death at the end of a franchise to determine whether or not this trilogy is cohesive and stands alone without the need for a further sequel to wrap up the story. This one definitely teases sequels, and I don't feel like it resolves, but then it like takes it a step back and was like, oh no, actually it's not over. it pulls a fast one right at the end. So.
And it wasn't even the way that it was like, oh, and the adventure continues, like most things are.
Yeah. So yeah,
But
I would say dishonorable, but it's like a light dishonorable. I think you can still like watch this and be like, okay, that was like the end of the story. I guess it's fine.
Not very satisfying though.
No, so dishonorable.
Dishonorable.
We all agree.
Yep.
All right. Next week, we are talking about Aragon, which this will open up our series of dragon-based movies. It's going to be a bit of a shorter one, but we're still going to talk about at least 3 or 4 dragon-based movies. So look forward to that.
You know what's sad about this one? I have strong connections to the series, and I'm not going to be there.
Yeah.
We'll have a tidbit for you.
Yeah. We'll leave an opening for you
It's
if you
just
want.
sad.
I'm sorry.
I know. It was unfortunate, but we do have a good guest spot that filled in.
Yeah. All right, yeah, next week, Aragon. Until then,
Toodles.
bye.
Sounds like rejects from a Saturday morning cartoon.